Arya had always lived inside the walls of the human colony, a safe place built on the strange world far away from Earth. She had turned 20 this year, and though many people saw her as a young adult, deep inside she still carried the heart of a girl who dreamed of more than fences and rules. She would often wake up early in the morning just to watch the pale suns rise over the horizon. There were 2 suns on this planet, one small and faint and another bright and golden. When they both appeared in the sky, the land outside the colony walls shimmered like silver sand, and Arya's heart always stirred with longing. Life inside the colony was routine. People worked in the fields, repaired the machines, and maintained the protective shield that kept them safe from the storms and wild creatures. But for Arya, the walls sometimes felt like a cage. She wanted to explore, to touch the unknown soil, to feel the wind that came from beyond. Her father, who worked as a farmer, often reminded her that safety was more important than curiosity. Her mother reminded her that young women should learn patience and wisdom. But Arya could not silence the restless voice inside her. That morning was different. She was assigned to help with a repair on the outer shield system. It was her first time being so close to the colony's boundary, and her heart raced with both fear and excitement. She wore a simple work suit, and her long brown hair was tied back so it would not get in the way. As she walked toward the repair site, she noticed workers already busy with tools, lifting equipment and tightening parts of the structure. Among them stood Darren. Arya had seen him before in passing but never spoken to him. He was a young man, a few years older than her, with strong shoulders and hands that always seemed busy with heavy tasks. His face carried quiet determination, and he moved with a calm confidence that made others listen when he spoke. People respected him, though he never demanded it. When Arya arrived, Darren glanced at her briefly, then gave her a small nod. "You must be the new helper today," he said, his voice steady but not unkind. "Yes," Arya replied, her voice a little softer than she intended. "I was told to assist with the repairs." Darren handed her a tool. "Then let's get started. We need all the help we can get." The shield system was old and storms had damaged some parts of it. Metal rods needed replacing, circuits needed rewiring, and energy lines had to be checked. Arya did her best to follow instructions. She climbed onto platforms, carried parts, and held light steady, while Darren worked on delicate repairs. At first, she felt nervous around him. His quiet presence was strong, and his eyes seemed to notice everything, every mistake, every hesitation. But he never raised his voice. When she dropped a small wrench by accident, he simply picked it up, placed it back in her hand, and said, "Hold it tighter this time." Hours passed, and Arya grew more confident. She began to understand how the system worked, and Darren even allowed her to tighten some of the circuits herself. When she succeeded, he gave her a brief smile. It was small, but it warmed her more than she expected. Then disaster struck. As the afternoon winds began to rise, part of the outer wall gave way. A large section of metal cracked and started to collapse. Arya, standing too close, lost her balance. She felt the ground tilt beneath her, and the world spun as she slipped toward the edge of the platform. In that terrifying moment, strong arms caught her. Darren had leapt forward, wrapping his arms firmly around her waist, pulling her back from the fall. For a second, Arya was pressed against his chest, her breath stolen by both fear and shock. His grip was steady, his strength unshakable. "Careful," he said, his voice calm but carrying a hint of concern. "Don't lose focus." Arya's heart raced wildly. She looked up at him, and for a moment their eyes met. His were a deep shade of gray, steady like stone, yet gentle in the way they studied her face. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She only nodded. When he finally released her, she felt strangely empty, as if part of her longed for the safety of his arms again. She shook her head quickly, trying to focus back on the task. The rest of the day went by with careful work. Darren continued to guide her, sometimes correcting her mistakes, sometimes quietly watching as she tried to figure things out herself. His patience surprised her. Many workers would have been harsh with a beginner, but he treated her as if she had potential worth shaping. By evening, the shield was repaired enough to last through the next storm. The workers gathered their tools, tired but satisfied. Arya sat on a small crate, wiping sweat from her forehead. Her arms ached and her hands were sore, but there was a smile on her face. Darren approached her, holding a water flask. "Here," he said, offering it to her. She accepted it with a grateful nod. "Thank you." You did well for your first time, he added. Not many would keep working after a scare like that. Arya looked down, embarrassed but pleased. I didn't want to give up. Darren gave another small smile. That's good. Giving up is easy. But holding on, even when it's hard, that's what makes the difference. Those words stayed with her as she walked back home that evening. Her parents noticed the dirt on her clothes and the tired look in her eyes, but they also noticed the spark of excitement in her expression. She told them only a little about the repair work, leaving out the part where she nearly fell. That moment she kept for herself, held close like a secret treasure. That night, lying in her small bed, Arya thought about the way Darren had caught her. The memory of his strong arms around her returned again and again, each time stirring something unfamiliar in her heart. It was not fear, nor was it simple gratitude. It was something softer, warmer, and far more confusing. The next morning, she found herself eager to return to the repair site. She told herself it was because she wanted to learn more, to prove she could be useful. But deep down, she knew another reason pulled her forward, the hope of seeing Darren again. When she arrived, he was already there, tightening bolts on a heavy frame. He glanced up briefly, his gray eyes meeting hers for a moment before he returned to his work. You came back, he said simply. Yes, Arya replied, trying to sound casual. I wanted to learn more, Darren nodded. Then let's keep working. As the days went by, Arya and Darren worked side by side more often. She began to understand the rhythm of his movements, the calm tone of his voice, and the rare but genuine smiles he gave when something was done right. She discovered that behind his strong presence was not just a worker, but a protector, someone who cared deeply for the safety of the colony and everyone inside it. Slowly, she also discovered something within herself, a growing admiration for him, and a quiet joy whenever he was near. Arya had not yet put a name to this feeling, but her heart already knew, and though the dangers outside the colony still loomed, the storms, the creatures, the unknown shadows in the distance, Arya's world had already changed, because in that single moment when she had nearly fallen, and Darren had caught her in his strong arms, she had unknowingly taken her first step into love. Arya woke up earlier than usual the next day. The suns had not yet risen, but the colony was already alive with quiet movements. Workers carried tools, farmers prepared the soil, and guards checked the outer gates. Her heart was restless, and though she told herself it was because she wanted to keep learning about the shield systems, deep inside she knew it was also because of Darren. She could still feel the memory of his arms catching her the day before. Every time her mind replayed that moment, her chest felt warm and her breath quickened. She tried to push the thought aside, reminding herself that she was only a beginner and he was far more experienced. Yet the feeling refused to leave. After a quick meal, she walked toward the repair site again. The air outside was cool, and the faint light of the smaller sun gave the colony a silver glow. When she arrived, she saw Darren already at work. His jacket was hung on a nearby rail, and his sleeves were rolled up as he worked with a heavy piece of equipment. His movements were strong and steady, as if he had done this task hundreds of times. He noticed her standing nearby. You're early, he said without looking up from the machine. I couldn't sleep, Arya admitted. I thought I could help more today. Darren gave a short nod. Good, then bring me the smaller wrench from that box. She hurried to fetch it, placing it carefully in his hand. He tightened a large bolt, then stepped back to test the repaired section. The machine hummed softly, its energy lines glowing faintly. Better, Darren muttered. Then he turned to her. We'll need to check the outer panels today. They've been showing signs of stress. Are you ready? Arya hesitated for only a second before nodding. Yes. Together they climbed to the higher platforms near the edge of the shield. From there, the view of the world outside stretched wide and endless. Silver plains glimmered beneath the rising suns, and dark ridges marked the horizon. Strange winds carried dust that shimmered like glass. Arya had never been this close to the outside before, and though fear brushed against her heart, excitement rose even stronger. Darren worked with calm focus, showing her how to check the energy flow through the shield's panels. He explained which lines to inspect, which bolts to secure, and how to read the faint glowing signals that showed the shield's strength. Look here, he said, pointing to a dim section. This one is weakening. If a storm hits, it might fail. Arya leaned closer, trying to see. How do we fix it? We reroute the flow, Darren explained. He showed her how to open a panel, adjust the small glowing circuits, and lock them back in place. His hands moved with precision, but he allowed her to try as well. At first her fingers shook, but he guided her gently, his voice steady. Careful. Not too much pressure. That's it. Now twist the lock. Yes, just like that. When she succeeded, she looked up at him with wide eyes. Did I do it? Darren checked the glow. You did. Good work, Arya smiled, her heart filling with pride. Thank you for showing me. He gave a small smile in return. You learn fast. That's good. We need more people who are willing to work, not just watch. They moved from panel to panel, checking and repairing. Hours passed, and though the work was tiring, Arya felt more alive than ever. Every small success made her eager to keep going, and every word of encouragement from Darren gave her strength. At midday, they paused for a short rest. Darren handed her a flask of water again. She drank, then handed it back. Their fingers brushed for a brief moment, and Arya felt her cheeks warm. She quickly looked away, pretending to study the horizon. What's out there? She asked, trying to change the subject. Darren followed her gaze. Storms. Creatures. Sometimes shadows that move when the light shifts. No one knows exactly. We stay inside the shield for a reason. Have you ever wanted to go beyond it? Arya asked quietly. He was silent for a moment, then answered, When I was younger, maybe. But now I know better. Out there the world is dangerous, and here people need us to keep them safe. That's where our duty lies. Arya thought about his words. She admired his sense of responsibility. But her heart still longed for the unknown, yet she did not say it aloud. Instead, she simply nodded. Later in the afternoon, a sudden gust of wind rattled the shield. The panels shook, and one of the support beams groaned under the pressure. Without hesitation, Darren rushed to stabilize it. Arya, hold this line, he shouted, tossing her a thick cable. She caught it, her arms trembling under the weight, but she pulled with all her strength, anchoring it as Darren worked quickly to secure the beam. Dust swirled around them, and for a moment fear threatened to break her resolve. But then she remembered his words. Holding on even when it's hard, that's what makes the difference. She tightened her grip, refusing to let go. Finally, Darren locked the beam in place. The shaking lessened, and the shield steadied once more. He turned to her, his face streaked with dust, but his eyes shining with relief. Well done, he said. You didn't let go. Arya's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, but she managed a smile. I couldn't. You told me not to give up. For a brief moment, his expression softened. He stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. You're stronger than you think, Arya. Her heart skipped a beat at his touch. She wanted to say something, but her voice failed her. Instead, she simply nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. As evening approached, the workers finished their tasks and began to return to the colony center. Darren and Arya walked side by side, their steps slow from exhaustion. The suns dipped lower, painting the sky with shades of orange and silver. You did well today, Darren said quietly. So did you, Arya replied, though I think you always do. He glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Not always. I just try my best, same as you. When they reached the central square, they parted ways. Arya walked home, her body tired but her heart lighter than it had ever been. Her parents noticed her glow, but she gave them only simple answers, keeping her true feelings hidden deep inside. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She thought about the day, about Darren's patience, his guidance, his strength, and the rare moments when his calm mask broke to show something softer. She realized that every moment spent with him drew her closer, and though she could not name it yet, she knew it was something precious. The next days followed a similar pattern. Arya returned again and again to the repair sites, eager to learn and to work alongside him. Each time Darren welcomed her without complaint. He continued to teach her, sometimes challenging her to try harder, sometimes stepping in to guide her hand. Slowly, trust grew between them. Arya trusted him not only with the work but with her safety, knowing that his presence meant steadiness even in chaos. Darren in turn began to trust her as well, giving her more responsibility, allowing her to handle delicate tasks, and even listening to her suggestions. One afternoon, when they faced a particularly complex repair, Arya suggested a different way to reroute the energy flow. Darren studied her plan, then nodded. Let's try it your way. When it worked, he gave her a genuine smile. You were right. Well done. The pride that filled her heart was overwhelming. Not only had she succeeded, but he had trusted her enough to follow her idea. That moment felt like a turning point, as if she was no longer just a helper but a true partner. By the end of the week, whispers spread among the other workers. Some teased that Darren had finally found someone who could match his stubborn focus. Others noted how often the two were seen together, working side by side until the sun set. Arya blushed at the comments, but secretly, she cherished them, for in her heart she knew they were true. And though she still had not spoken her feelings aloud, every day that passed only confirmed it more. She had found safety, strength, and something far deeper in Darren's presence. She had found the beginning of her first love.
The colony lived in uneasy peace for many years, but Arya began to notice that something was changing outside the walls. Strange noises carried on the winds during the nights, low and distant at first, but growing louder with each passing week. The shield panels often flickered more than before, and the storms arrived with unexpected force. Rattling the entire protective dome, life continued as usual inside, yet whispers spread among the workers. Some claimed they had seen shadows moving along the horizon, too tall to be ordinary creatures. Others said the shield was being tested, struck again and again by unknown forces. Most people dismissed these as fears born from long days of work and isolation. But Darren did not. Arya could tell by the way his eyes hardened whenever the shield flickered, by the way he stayed longer after hours to double-check every circuit and support beam. He spoke little, but his silence carried weight. He knew something was coming. One evening, after a long day of repairs, Arya approached him as he sat alone near the outer gate. Staring at the sky where the last light of the suns faded, "You've been quiet," she said softly. Sitting beside him, Darren glanced at her briefly, then looked back at the horizon. "I've been thinking about what?" "The shield," he replied. "It's failing faster than it should. And the storms? They're not natural. It feels like something is testing us, waiting for us to weaken." Arya shivered. "You think something is out there?" He did not answer right away. His jaw tightened, and finally he said, "I don't think." "I know." Her heart skipped. Fear wrapped around her, but she forced herself to stay calm. "What can we do?" Darren turned to her then, his gray eyes steady. "We prepare, and we fight if we must." Those words stayed with her. She wanted to believe their walls and shields would always protect them. But now she realized the truth. Safety was never certain. And for the first time, she felt the weight of responsibility, not just for herself, but for everyone inside the colony. The following week proved Darren right. It happened during the night. The shield's alarm rang across the colony, waking people from their sleep. Arya rushed outside, her heart pounding, and saw the glow of the dome shaking violently. Sparks flew where the panels connected, and the air buzzed with unnatural energy. "Everyone to stations," a voice shouted. Arya grabbed her work jacket and ran toward the shield lines. She found Darren already there, shouting instructions to other workers. His calm but commanding voice carried through the chaos. "Check the east panels. Secure the energy lines. Move quickly." Arya rushed to his side. "What's happening?" she asked breathlessly. He pointed toward the horizon. "Look." Her eyes followed his hand, and she froze. Tall figures moved in the distance, their bodies dark against the glowing sands. They walked with strange, deliberate steps, too organized to be wild animals. Their outlines shimmered faintly, as if the very air bent around them. She could not see their faces, but the sight alone sent chills through her. "They're real," she whispered. Darren's voice was firm. "Yes, and they're trying to break through." The attackers struck the shield with weapons that sent waves of energy crashing against it. The dome rippled like water, each strike weakening it further. Sparks fell like rain, and parts of the colony flickered with sudden blackouts. Panic spread among the people, but Darren's voice rose above the noise. "Hold the lines. We need to keep the shield stable." Arya forced herself to focus. She joined the others, climbing up to check the circuits. Her hands shook, but she remembered everything Darren had taught her. She tightened bolts, rerouted energy, and shouted for more tools when needed. Every second felt like a battle, not just against the unknown outside, but against fear itself. At one point, a panel above her cracked under the pressure. She slipped on the ladder, falling with a cry. Before she hit the ground, Darren was there, catching her once again in his arms. "You all right?" he asked, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Yes," she gasped, her heart racing. He set her on her feet but kept his hand briefly on her shoulder. "Stay close. We'll get through this." Those words gave her strength. The battle with the shadows lasted through the night. Finally, as the smaller sun rose, the figures retreated, melting back into the horizon. The shield, though badly damaged, still stood. Exhausted, the workers collapsed on the ground, some cheering weakly, others simply closing their eyes in relief. But Arya noticed Darren did not celebrate. He stood tall, staring at the horizon with a grim expression. "They'll be back," he said quietly. And she knew he was right. The days that followed were heavy with preparation. The colony leaders gathered the workers, urging them to double their efforts. The shield had to be reinforced, the weapons checked, the defenses strengthened. People worked tirelessly, their fear driving them forward. Arya continued to work beside Darren every day. She noticed how much more protective he had become, often checking her safety twice before his own. At first, she felt frustrated, wanting to prove she was not weak. But slowly she understood. It was not doubt in her ability, but care for her life. One afternoon, as they repaired the Western Energy Core, Arya dared to speak what had been building inside her heart. "You don't always have to protect me first," she said quietly. Darren looked at her, his expression unreadable. "I do. Why?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, his voice softer than usual, he answered, "Because I can't lose you." Her breath caught. His words carried more than duty, more than friendship. For a heartbeat, she saw beyond his steady mask, into the deeper feelings he carried but rarely showed. She wanted to reply to tell him that she felt the same. But the alarm rang again before she could. Another attack had begun. This time, the enemy came closer. Dark figures appeared against the dome, pressing their strange weapons directly onto the shield. Sparks exploded, and sections of the barrier weakened dangerously. "Main power core?" someone shouted. "It's failing." Darren grabbed his toolkit. "Arya with me." They raced toward the central core, where the shield drew its main energy. The place shook violently, and smoke filled the air. Several circuits had already been destroyed, leaving only a few still glowing. "We need to restart it," Darren said, pulling open a panel. "But it's risky. If it overloads, we have no choice," Arya replied firmly. Together, they worked, their hands moving quickly over the glowing circuits. Sparks flew, and heat burned their skin, but neither backed away. Every second mattered. At one point, a shadowy figure broke through a crack in the shield and lunged toward them. Arya froze, her heart leaping into her throat. The creature's body shimmered strangely, its form shifting like smoke. Before it reached her, Darren grabbed a heavy tool and struck, forcing it back through the crack. The shield flared, sealing the gap again. "Focus, Arya," he shouted. "We can do this." She nodded, forcing her fear away. Her hands moved faster, guided by determination. She rerouted the final line, twisted the last lock, and shouted, "Now." Darren pulled the main lever. The core roared to life, sending a surge of energy through the entire shield. The dome blazed with renewed strength, pushing the attackers back. One by one, the shadows retreated, until the horizon was clear again. The colony erupted in cheers. Relief washing over everyone, Arya collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face, not from fear, but from the overwhelming weight of survival. She looked up at Darren, who stood beside her, his chest rising and falling heavily. Without thinking, she threw her arms around him. He stiffened for a moment, then slowly returned the embrace, holding her tightly against him, in his strong arms. She felt safe, not because the danger had passed, but because she knew he would always stand with her. No matter what came, for Arya, it was no longer a question. She had found her first love, not in dreams, but in the strength, courage, and heart of the man who fought beside her.
The morning after the attack, the colony awoke to a world both familiar and changed. The suns rose over the silver plains, painting the horizon in warm gold and soft orange. The air was still, almost peaceful, but the events of the previous night left a quiet tension in every heartbeat. People moved with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Some whispered of the creatures they had seen, while others focused on repairs and cleanup. Arya stood near the outer wall, her hands covered in dust and grime. The shield had survived, but many panels needed replacement. Sparks and scorch marks ran along the metal like scars, evidence of the attack. She touched one with her glove, remembering how close the darkness had come, and how strong Darren had been when it mattered most. He appeared beside her silently, his expression calm but thoughtful. For a moment neither spoke. The two watched the horizon together, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. "You did well," Darren said finally, his voice low but steady. Arya shook her head. "We both did. I couldn't have managed without you." He looked at her, gray eyes softening. "You held the lines when I wasn't fast enough. You saved the core with your quick thinking. You were brave," her cheeks flushed. "I just did what you taught me." "And you did it well," he said simply. The quiet between them stretched, filled with unspoken thoughts. Arya realized she wanted more than words. She wanted to stay close to him, to let him know how much she cared. But the memory of the night's terror reminded her that life was fragile, and she hesitated, unsure how to speak. Over the next few days, the colony focused on repairs. Panels were replaced, circuits rewired, and the shield strengthened beyond its previous power. The leaders praised everyone who had fought during the attack, but Arya and Darren were busy with practical matters rather than accolades. They worked side by side, moving through the chaos of repair crews, heavy tools, and sparking circuits. During one break, Arya sat on a crate, wiping sweat from her brow. Darren sat next to her, stretching his arms over his head. "Do you ever get tired of all this?" she asked. He shook his head. "No, someone has to protect the colony. We don't get a choice. But you could choose differently," she said softly. "You could leave." "I've thought about it," he admitted. "But then, who would be here to hold things together?" His eyes met hers. "Who would help people survive when it matters?" Arya nodded, understanding. His strength wasn't only in his hands or muscles. It was in his heart, and in the choices he made every day. For the first time, she saw him not just as a protector, but as a person who carried the weight of responsibility and love all at once. Her admiration deepened into something more. She realized her heart had fully claimed him as her first love. One evening, after the repair work was done, Arya found herself walking toward the same hill where she had first watched the suns rise. She was thinking about the future, about the dangers outside, and about Darren. He had become more than a companion. He had become a part of her life she could not imagine living without. She heard footsteps behind her. "Arya," he said. She turned. "Darren, I didn't hear you coming." "I didn't want to startle you," he replied. "May I join you?" She nodded, and together they climbed the hill in silence. At the top, the view stretched wide. The colony walls glimmered in the fading light, the plains beyond shimmering silver. The wind carried a gentle coolness, and for the first time in days, Arya felt calm. "You know," Darren said, "after last night, I realized something." She looked at him, curious. "What?" "That I can't imagine facing the dangers alone. And that I don't want to." Her heart skipped. She knew what he meant, though he did not finish the sentence. "I feel the same," she admitted softly. I trust you. Not just with my life, but with my heart." Darren's gaze softened, and he took a step closer. The distance between them seemed smaller than ever, as if the world itself had conspired to bring them together. "Then we stay together," he said. "Through storms, dangers, whatever comes." Arya felt tears well in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. "Yes," she whispered. He extended his hand. She took it, feeling the strength of his grip and the warmth of his heart. For a moment they stood silently, hands intertwined, watching the suns dip below the horizon. The following weeks were filled with hope and rebuilding. The colony grew stronger, people more confident, and the shadow of fear gradually lifted. But for Arya and Darren, life had changed in a way nothing else could alter. They worked side by side, learned together, and planned small moments of peace whenever the day allowed. One afternoon, while repairing a minor fault in the shield, Arya slipped on a wet patch. Without a word, Darren caught her again, just as he had during the first collapse months ago. This time there was no fear, only laughter. "You always save me," she said teasingly. He chuckled, holding her closer than necessary. "And you always manage to find yourself in trouble." Her laugh joined his, light and warm. "I guess that makes us even." "Even?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, you protect me. I protect your heart." Darren's gray eyes softened. He leaned slightly closer. "That's already done, Arya. You've had it all along." Their laughter faded, replaced by a comfortable silence. For the first time, the dangers outside seemed distant. Here, together, they found peace. As days passed, their bond deepened. Arya discovered that Darren, beneath his strong exterior, was kind, patient, and thoughtful. He taught her not only about the machines, but also about life, courage, and trust. In return, she shared her curiosity, her clever ideas, and her laughter. They complemented each other, balancing strength and wisdom, caution and daring. The colony noticed the change too. Workers whispered about the young couple who moved like one unit, who saved each other as easily as they saved the colony. Children looked up at them with admiration, seeing a model of courage and partnership. Elders smiled knowingly, remembering young love from their own lives, and feeling hope that even in a world so far from Earth, the human heart remained unchanged. One evening, Darren led Arya to the highest observation deck in the colony. The platform overlooked the entire settlement and the distant plains. The winds whispered softly, carrying the scent of alien soil and the faint hum of machinery below. "I wanted to show you something," he said, turning toward her. "What is it?" she asked, curious. He smiled, a rare, gentle smile that made her heart flutter. "The future. Ours if we choose it." Arya looked at him, unsure what he meant. "We've survived storms, attacks, and fear," he continued. "And through it all, we've stood together. I don't want to hide from that from us." Her chest tightened with anticipation. "Darren." He stepped closer, taking both her hands in his. "Arya, I love you. I have for some time. I know it's not easy. Not in a world like this, but I want you to know. You're my heart. My reason to fight, my reason to protect, and my reason to dream." Tears filled her eyes, and she felt a warmth that went beyond anything the suns could provide. "I love you too," she whispered. "I have from the first time you caught me. I didn't know it then, but now I do." A smile spread across his face, and for a moment the colony, the dangers and the storms all vanished. There was only the two of them standing in the fading light, hands intertwined, hearts beating as one. Darren leaned gently, and Arya met him halfway. Their lips touched briefly, softly, a promise of love and partnership. It was not grand or dramatic, but it was perfect. It was theirs. In the days that followed, life in the colony continued. Arya and Darren worked, laughed, and learned together. They explored the settlement, repaired the shields, and helped train others to protect themselves. But now every glance, every touch carried a deeper meaning. They had found not only love, but also trust, courage, and a shared purpose. The attack had shown them the fragility of life, but it also revealed the strength of human connection. In a world filled with danger, shadows, and unknown storms, Arya and Darren had discovered something unshakable: each other. And so, under the twin suns of a distant world, the 20-year-old girl found her first love in the arms of the man who had fought beside her, protected her, and shared her heart. For Arya, the galaxy no longer felt empty. The stars no longer seemed distant, because in his arms she had found home.